I really enjoy Assassin's Creed Shadows, but I think it's missing some classic Shinobi tools that would make the gameplay, especially the stealth gameplay, even better. Before I explain what they are and how they'd work, I need to explain how the actual tool section in the UI would have to change a little bit to accommodate them. So the way it works currently is you've got kunai on the up arrow and shuriken on the right arrow. Now I would change this so that kunai and shuriken share one slot. So you just press up on the D-pad to cycle between. And then that would also work for some of the new gadgets as well, as I'll explain. So the first new tool would be Caltrops, and these would share a slot with the smoke bomb, and you could cycle between them by pressing down on the D-pad. So they take up that slot there. Now you could aim and throw caltrops just like a smoke bomb to scatter them across an area, or you could use the quick fire option to scatter some behind you. And what they do is enemies that step on them would take a little bit of damage, but it would also interrupt them as well. So if they're about to throw out an attack and step on a caltrop, it would interrupt that attack. And in a fight, this would be really good if you get surrounded, so you can stop enemies from attacking you from one direction. Or if you're trying to escape quickly, you could scatter some behind you and run away, and then any enemies that follow you, they would obviously take a little bit of damage and get interrupted. I think to keep it balanced, you'd only be able to carry one pouch of caltrops at a time. The next tool I'd like to see is actually the return of the blowgun from previous games, which would include sleep darts and berserk darts. And that would take up the slot left behind by shuriken, because that's now sharing a slot with kunai. I didn't think to include it when I made this image, but because it'd be two separate darts, it would be a toggle, so you'd have two different types of darts tied to this one key that you could cycle between. So the berserk darts obviously make an enemy go crazy and start attacking his allies, and the sleep darts obviously send enemies to sleep. I don't think it should fully knock them down to the ground the way it did in the older games, but you know the way in Shadows you can find some guards that are sort of dozing, they're half asleep like this, and standing up leaning against the wall or leaning on their spear. I think it should do that to them, so it basically puts them in a state where it's harder for them to detect you. And with the servants that are in castles that can run off and alert people, I think it should fully knock them out the same way it does when you choke. On a little side note, I think killing those servants should result in a desynchronization, so this would be a good way to deal with them at a range. And again, for balancing reasons, I think you should be able to carry two sleep darts and one berserk dart at a time. Third and final new tool would be Firecrackers, which would share a slot with the Shinobi Bell. And while they share a similar function, what they do is they'd attract a lot more enemies, but also cover sounds that you make as well. So especially useful on the new Nightmare difficulty, because you make more sound and guards are more responsive to sound. This would cover things like sprinting, cutting through a door, or taking down an enemy. So enemies that are distracted by the firecrackers wouldn't be able to hear you doing these other things, so it gives you some time to carry out an attack. So these are just a few ways I think you could expand now a stealth gameplay, but let me know in the comments what you'd like to see.